briefly for the rest. We're calling the meeting to order, and the next piece up, which is item number 2, is adoption of the agenda. I'll put that forward and I'll ask for a show of a hand for a second and then go to amendments. Thank you. Any amendments, any changes? We don't have to do the digital hand. Your hand up is fine. I'm watching. Yes, Councillor Abbott?
In the page 5 of the agenda, the closed section, I would like to...
did you want to disclose, hang on, Councillor Abbott, did you want to disclose it now or a reason to close? It's
about closing, so I'd like to disclose it now. I'm not going to discuss it. I'm not going to discuss it now.
Thank you. I apologize for interrupting. Please continue.
So on item A, I would like to, when we're going to close, use clause N to ask why that is enclosed and challenge that part of all of it can be in open. And then on item B, I would like to, as per the community charter, section 91(1), I would like to request that that is for council only and exclude staff. And I could read 91(1) if anyone needs me to.
Thank you very much. I'll hand this back to the CAO for his response on this.
Should I read 91(1) for everyone's benefit?
Well, 91, sorry, 91 1 or 90 sub 1?
No, 91(1).
91
That's
1, just one moment.
Brand new one.
I have it in front of me, I could read it.
Go ahead.
Okay, it reads, if all or part of a meeting is closed to the public, the council may allow one or more municipal officers and employees to attend or exclude them from attending as it considers appropriate. And I think item B should be for council only, with no staff.
Councillor Abbott, that's 91 subsection 1.
Correct.
Thank you.
No.
We could take it into close and discuss it further if you need to.
I'm just trying to clarify in my own mind which items that's actually referring to.
It may be a CAO.
Okay, so that's fine. Yeah, sounds good.
CAO, you know what that's going to be about.
Yeah, sorry, I just had to refresh my memory.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. Thank you very much for that. Very good point. I'll make sure I add that when I do the disclosure.
Thank you.
That was the, I thought there was 2, or is it just 1? Councillor Abbott?
There was 2 points, I just mentioned them both.
On the same 91 subsection 1?
No, on the previous one, on item A, in the close, I'm going to use clause N to challenge if all or part of that discussion can be in open. But obviously I can't do that now. And on item B is 91(1).
CAO?
Yeah, we'll I guess have that conversation when we get there.
Enclosed.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so just for clarity, the changes to the agenda as they stand now are to add, for the purposes of closing the meeting, section 91 subsection 1. Is that everybody's understanding?
Yeah, that's the only addition as far as I can see.
Subject to additions. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you everybody for that. And quick pickup, Councillor Abbott. Okay, so all in favor of the agenda as amended? We'll take ayes as a yes. Anybody opposed? Thank you. No, good. Public participation, 2 minutes per. And looking at the screen, I see Ruth. I presume you would like a couple of minutes with us.
Hello, good evening. Thank you. Should I go?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I hoped this evening that the resolution that's in your agenda, I am just here to answer any questions. I'll stick through the meeting later on. But I'm also here to, in support of your next speaker of the delegation from Tracy Saxby. I just want to emphasize and draw attention to the Ocean Watch report. This is the edition of the House Ocean Watch report that has many different chapters on the health of the ocean and the health of the sound. But it also, in this particular edition, it really emphasizes climate change and shoreline and erosion issues in and around the sound. And so this is a wonderful tool just to remind everyone that when you're looking at planning and issues to do with the Village of Lions Bay and our shorelines, that to please don't forget these references as well as the marine reference, the conservation assessment. So I'm happy to answer questions anytime, but I think that the chapters in here on climate change and adaptation, I hope that you get a chance to read them and also to support the rest of the communities around House Sound in declaring a climate emergency and to support the zero carbon challenge that Tracy's going to speak about.
Thank you very much, Ruth. So thank you very much again. And councillors, any questions for the delegate? There being none, we appreciate you participating, Ruth, and we should be whistling through this pretty quickly and get to the resolution relative to the Ocean Watch. Are there any other public participants? I see we have some other guests on the screen. This is the going, gone phase. Give me another second. There being none, we'll move on to the next item, which is public delegation. And we're pleased to have Tracy Saxby, Executive Director of My Sea to Sky Climate Action Report Card Tool. And Tracy, you have the floor.
Thank you so much for having me join you today. I'm really excited to speak to you about what I have been doing with regards to the Zero Carbon Challenge. And thank you, Ruth. I did not know that you were going to be here tonight. I'm going to share my screen if I can have permission to do that, please.
Yeah, I think you should be able to.
It says it's disabled right now. I think you need to click, there's a little button that you click that allows people to share right at the bottom of your screen. Now, here we go. Okay. Okay, so this is a very exciting project, and I've been working very closely with Climate Caucus, along with BCIT and Community Energy Association. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about municipal carbon accounting and accountability and what we're planning to do to help resolve some of the challenges that smaller communities like Lions Bay have. So first up, a little background. Canada is not on track to achieve our greenhouse gas reduction targets. If we look at the last 20 years of emissions, 30 years of emissions, since 1990, our greenhouse gas emissions have increased by more than 20%. And in the last 10 years, greenhouse gas emissions have continued to increase by over 5%. So what we're doing to reduce emissions isn't working. And we have a lot of work to do together to achieve our climate targets. We're not on track to achieve our Copenhagen target this year. We're not on track to achieve the Paris Agreement by 2030 or the IPCC target, which is the latest science that says that we must reduce emissions by 45% below by 2030 and net zero by 2050. So we have a lot of work to do. So every individual, every business, every industry, and every local government needs to do their part. So we have a goal to build capacity for local governments to track and report community-wide greenhouse gas emissions every year and to catalyze climate action in house and communities. And the way that we're planning to do that is to develop a climate action report card tool that will help municipalities to track emissions every year. We're also developing a zero carbon challenge tool for citizens and businesses, and the whole campaign is called the Zero Carbon Challenge. And then we'll also have a community outreach and engagement planned with residents around Howe Sound. So this is a very exciting project that I'm working on with BCIT, Community Energy Association, with support from Climate Caucus and also support from the BC Climate Action Secretariat. Right now, so far, the District of Squamish, Sunshine Coast Regional District, and Islands Trust have all signed up. I'm still in discussions with Bowen Island, West Vancouver, and Whistler. But yeah, that's where I'm you tonight. So the reason I'm targeting municipalities is because it's local governments that are on the ground doing the work. You are the communities that are on the front lines of climate change. Local governments or municipalities or communities are responsible for 50 to 80% of greenhouse gas emissions. And the decisions on land use, buildings, local transport, and waste are all controlled at the local level. Local governments are agile, and you can adopt and test new policies quickly. And there's a lot of opportunities for collaboration at the municipal level to catalyze climate action. And local governments can also more easily inspire transformational change with their constituents. And we're also planning to help make that happen. So right now, we are only measuring approximately 25% of emissions, or 25 to 50% of emissions. So through the BC Climate Action Secretariat, they have been tracking and reporting greenhouse gas emissions produced by buildings, transport, and solid waste through the Community Energy and Emissions Inventory. So this is approximately 25% of our emissions. And we have a lot of issues with the transportation data. So we are working to try and improve access to ICBC data so that we can track emissions from transportation more effectively in our communities. At the federal government level, there's national inventory reporting that's happening every year where they're reporting greenhouse gas emissions by sector. So that includes emissions from buildings, transport, and solid waste, and then adds in emissions from industry, agriculture, and oil and gas. So this is approximately 50% of the pie. So right now, what we're not tracking is consumption-based emissions inventories. These are the greenhouse gas emissions that are associated with the production, transportation, use and disposal of products and services that are consumed by a community. So this is our food, goods and services, and flights. So we're not tracking this right now. So we're missing 50% of the picture. And if we don't measure it, we cannot manage it. So why is it important to track emissions? It helps us to establish a consistent baseline for every community in BC. It allows us to identify where our emissions are coming from so that we can better target policies and public education campaigns. And this in turn supports evidence-based climate action planning. A lot of smaller communities have to make a very difficult decision between, well, do we take climate action or do we measure emissions? And you can't do both, and often you can't do either of them. So we're trying to build that capacity within the local governments. So by tracking emissions every year, it allows us to identify what is working, what isn't working. We can evaluate and adjust the policies. We can experiment with new policies and share success. It helps to improve accountability and transparency and inspire that community-wide behavior change that we need to see. So this is a mock-up of what I'm proposing to develop, and this is actually inspired by the article that I wrote in the Ocean Watch report. Within that report, and you should have received this in your councillor's package, there is an article called The Path to Zero Carbon Municipalities. So when I started looking at what local governments are doing to respond to our climate emergency, I started looking to see who's measuring emissions right now. And I realized very quickly that really the only communities that are doing this is Whistler every year. So this left panel here is based on real data from Squamish in 2017, Whistler in 2018, and West Vancouver in 2010. So West Vancouver hasn't measured their emissions since 2010 either. So what I'm proposing to do is to work with BCIT and Community Energy Association so that we do this for you and make it as simple as possible. So let's take this data and pretend that it's 2020. Now that we're tracking emissions in all of the different communities, we can identify like where our emissions coming from, and it becomes very clear that most of the emissions from these communities is from transportation, followed by buildings, and then solid waste. So say now I click on Squamish, click on this pie chart. So now we're measuring emissions every year over time, and this is totally faked. This is projected forward. So let's say we've got a really amazing campaign to get people out of gas-powered cars and into electric cars, or to get people out of cars and onto public transit or using more active forms of transportation. So we're having success with that campaign, so we're seeing a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. We've got a lot of success happening with our zero waste campaigns, so we're also seeing a reduction in emissions from solid waste. But we're not seeing any change in emissions from residential buildings, and actually we're seeing an increase in emissions from commercial and industrial buildings. So what this would allow the council to do is to say, okay, well, what we're doing with transportation is working, let's stick with that, let's continue the public education campaigns, but maybe we need new policies, or maybe we need a new outreach program to homeowners or to the owners of commercial and industrial buildings to make sure that Squamish stays on track to reaching its IPCC targets. So this is why this tool is very, very powerful and very important. So what is amazing is that we're partnering with BCIT. They already have a tool called the EcoCity Footprint Tool, and they are going to be helping us to track or to calculate all of the emissions. And so we're going to be taking the outputs from their tool and then putting it into our system. So this is a fantastic collaboration with them. And its Community Energy Association will also be involved in calculating the emissions for Lions Bay if you decide to sign up for this. So as I mentioned, we're partnering with Climate Caucus, BCIT, Community Energy Association. We're developing and testing the Climate Action Report Card tool. And we are looking for pilot communities and applying for funding right now. Our plans is to develop and test these tools in house-owned communities in 2021. And then we're going to be rapidly expanding the initiative across BC, and then in 2023 we're going to be expanding it across Canada. So we're very excited for Lions Bay and for house-owned communities to be a part of something big that is very innovative and going to help solve our climate emergency. So the question I have for you tonight is, will Lions Bay commit to measure greenhouse gas emissions in your community every year? So there's a few different levels that you can opt in at. The first level is that there's hardly any commitment from Lions Bay required at all. If you decide to opt in for the consumption-based emissions inventory, there will be a little bit of staff time that will be required, but we're mostly planning to do this work with BCIT and BCIT students. So there's a lot of benefit to Lions Bay to do this. There's also a possibility that if Lions Bay is interested, they could go one step further and also do an ecological footprint, which is the service that BCIT offers. And all of these will be available. We're applying for funding to cover them, so there's no cost other than some staff time. So the benefits to Lions Bay, we will be providing funding for a community energy and emissions inventory that will be conducted by Community Energy Association, and the value for that is approximately $1,000 per year. We're planning to do this for at least 2 more years, but I'm planning up to 10. We want to do this every year from 2020 through till 2030, just to make sure that we're on track. There's also funding for a consumption-based emissions inventory by BCIT, and the value of that is $16,500. There will be support from BCIT students to help collect and enter the data that's required for Lions Bay. And these tracking emissions is going to support the evidence-based climate action. So it's going to be able to support the decisions that you will be making as mayor and council, and that staff will be making to try to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in Lions Bay. And then My City Sky will be engaging with residents through community outreach and engagement to catalyze climate action. So we're going to be meeting with community groups, we're going to be meeting with schools, we're going to be presenting to anybody that will let us present, pretty much, and getting them involved in the solutions, the climate solutions that we need to see.
Thank you very much, Tracy. Thank you very much for your presentation, and if you're up for it, any questions from the councillors? Please.
Ron, I don't think Tracy was quite finished.
I have just one more slide. So what we need from Lions Bay is a commitment to participate as a pilot community, staff support to identify any budget or capacity needs to participate. We don't want this to be a burden on staff. We recognize the budget and capacity constraints that small communities have, and a letter of support for any funding applications that we apply for. And then once funding is confirmed, we need approximately 20 hours of in-kind staff time over the next year. But if this is problematic, we can apply for funding to cover that staff time as well. So that will actually help with your budget. I think that's it now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Carly, can you delete the screen?
Yep.
Let's go just a second. Thank you very much. So councillors, I have the point, but I'll let the councillors go first. Councillors? Councillor Barmere?
I guess I would just want to, maybe I didn't follow close enough, but what's sort of the outcome of this exercise, and what kind of reporting frequency do you anticipate? You sort of collect data for a year and then produce a report annually, or how does that happen? What does that look like?
Yeah, so we're going to be calculating the emissions for Lions Bay every year for the next 10 years. That's the vision. So this first year, we're developing and testing the tool, but then we will be releasing an annual climate action report card every year. So this is an opportunity to engage residents in a conversation and to track emissions and then compare, like, so after we've done it the first year, the second year we'll be looking like, okay, well, have we seen success? Like, what's working? What do we need to change? And we'll be doing that year after year after year.
Thank you.
Councillors, any other questions?
I just want to say I think it's great. We could use some direction. Personally, I feel that we as a community could use some direction, and I like the idea. Thank you, Tracy, for your presentation.
Thank you very much. Councillor Abbott, just a second, Councillor Bain. Councillor Abbott, you're either dialing for dollars. Okay, you're out. Thank you. Councillor Bain.
One thing I'm curious though about this is you go zero carbon by 2050, and I struggle with this concept because I think, you know, using Vancouver City as an example, they don't have any capacity for growing anything to eat, so all food is trucked in by diesel trucks and things like that, which produce carbon. So how does that factor into the goals of having zero carbon by 2050?
Yeah, so this is definitely a challenge that we're all going to be facing. Like, all of the countries around the world are facing this challenge right now. And what is exciting about this is that there's a lot of technology that allows us to immediately begin reducing emissions. And this is what this campaign is trying to do. We're not saying that we're going to have all of the solutions immediately, but we need to start taking those actions that we do know work, and use the technology that's already available. And then as we come to those kind of questions that we can't answer, we know that people are working very hard to answer those questions and solve those questions. So for example, with agriculture or food coming in from other places, there's a lot of efforts to increase the amount of local agriculture within the regions, or to change how we are farming or where our food is, how it's being produced, to reduce emissions. Does that answer your question?
Well, not entirely, but I don't mean to put you on the spot. It's a complex question and answer, I suppose, but you know, I thank you for your response.
There you go. Thank you very much. Councillor Abbott, any questions? Are you good?
Yeah, and I do. Sorry, I was fumbling around there, but I couldn't find the right controls on my screen. I have a question about how this would tie into the CARO report, if it does. And I noticed on the presentation we've got in our meeting, there's a table that lays out, one of the tables lays out CARO report responses. And we seem to have the most dismal record of all. I'm hoping it's not completely accurate, but I know we have plans in place to start ramping up a climate action with some of our councillors and improve that. But doesn't this tie into the CARO report, and is it part of it?
Yes, so right now through the BC Climate Action Secretariat, from what I understand, the CARO report allows a community to report on your emissions that are created by the local government. And then if you report on those, you can apply for a tax break, or you get all of the carbon taxes back. So that's an incentive that the provincial government is offering right now for local governments, recognizing that smaller governments sometimes just don't even have the capacity to do that. So the emissions that are produced by Lions Bay, or the village of Lions Bay, is a very small portion of the total emissions. And yes, what we are capturing is community-wide emissions. So that will include the emissions from Lions Bay or the village of Lions Bay, like the corporate emissions from the village of Lions Bay, as well as the wider community. So it does tie in. And BC Climate Action Secretariat is really excited to see us expanding the reporting from just the local governments and what the local governments are producing to the entire community.
Okay, thanks. I've got one other question. When the Climate Action Task Force was formerly Lions Bay many years ago, I helped one of the subcommittees, and they were looking at the emissions. And if I remember correctly, we guesstimated, for lack of a better word, that our transportation was much larger. There was more like in the 80% sort of category of our emissions. But there was no way of getting any data, which is obviously what you're trying to address. We could get limited data from ICBC, as in the number of the size of vehicles that were registered in our community. So that was the only thing we could do. And I think we came up with some targets based on that, which we've probably blown out the water because the electric car hadn't been invented yet. So now those goals would have been really easily achieved. So my question is, ICBC, are they helping? Are they involved? Can you get data from them?
So people have been asking ICBC for this data for a very, very long time. I've been working very closely with Climate Caucus, and we have written a letter specifically asking for ICBC to start tracking odometer readings when people renew their car insurance. Because right now, the way that we're calculating transportation data, it uses essentially like gas sales, which isn't fair for communities like Lions Bay or Squamish, you know, where there's a lot of people that are filling up in Squamish or Hope, for example. It doesn't give you an accurate representation of what the emissions for that actual community are, particularly if people are filling up in other places other than in their home community. So it's really important for ICBC to start tracking odometer readings and also to report on the make and model of the car, whether it's electric, whether it's hybrid, whether it's gas. Because that will give us a much better picture of what the emissions are for each community. So through Climate Caucus, we're calling for this, or advocating for this. We're also going to be meeting with ICBC and David Eby to advocate for this. The snap election has put some of our plans back, unfortunately. So we're waiting until the government gets out of caretaker mode so that we can start having these conversations again. Everything's been put on hold for the last 2 months. But yes, there's a lot of people calling for this, and at the most recent UBCM as well, there was a motion that was brought forward by the District of Squamish that was approved at UBCM, calling for ICBC to do just this as well. So we're going to be highlighting to ICBC that this is a critical piece of data that we need. BC Climate Action Secretariat has also been calling for this for a long time. So we're going to try to get there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillors, any other questions for Tracy? There being nothing, thank you very much, Tracy, for your presentation. I don't want to leave you with an unfulfilled request, but I'm going to. Your specific asks, I'm sure that you've been given this by other people too. Climate action is something that is on the radar of the council, and I would expect that we will make it near the forefront in our strategic planning session the first week of December in terms of implementing a climate action council and resident committee. And the work that you've done will probably be part of the low-hanging fruit, but I'm loath to go ahead with moving anything towards a council resolution without this committee being struck. And so I would say we're going to pause on this one, document the items, and use that as one of the things I would ask the committee to address first. So in preparation for that, because the meeting is minuted, is there time sensitivity to this? We're at the end of 2020, and you're obviously planning for 2021. So hypothetically, if our committee was up and running, boots on the ground, deciding what they wanted to do as their immediate impact, and knowing my council as well as I do, it's kind of a results-oriented, eat what you kill kind of thing with this group. What's the timing to get the opportunities that you're offering us?
So we have already applied for a grant through Environment and Climate Change Canada. Thankfully we had letters of support from Sunshine Coast Regional District and District of Squamish. I am reaching out to other major funders all the time as of now. So as soon as we can get Lions Bay to commit as a pilot project and to include letters of support, it just strengthens our applications to funders. So there's no real deadline per se, but it would be helpful to have Lions Bay sign up as a pilot community so that we can include that in our applications for funding. We're applying to several different opportunities over the next few months.
There we go. How about we leave this conversation as that, because I will touch base with you in early January as to where we are with the formation of our committee and moving forward. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much, Tracy. Okay, next up, item number 5, review and approval of minutes of the prior meetings. We've got 2 sets of minutes here. And the first one is October 20th, and that is on, for the council members and to those who are virtual, it's on page 11 of your packages. And I will put forward the motion to accept, and then we'll go to a second, and then go to changes. Can I have a seconder? Thank you. Any changes, amendments, additions, deletions on October 20th? Councilors, just raise your hand. Councillor Abbott?
On page 11, the first point, it reads, here the Young confirmed the Ministerial Order 192 allows for electronic participation in meetings and that a corporate officer is present at the meeting. Can I just get confirmation, and maybe if need be reword that? The corporate officer is present is the CFO that's in the room, correct?
In this case, yes.
Okay. Well, yeah, in this case and last week, when this minute was done.
Sorry, I think it can apply to both electronic participation or presence, as well as if there's any doubt with respect to that, then in my absence, the CFO is the acting corporate officer, so she was present at the place of the meeting if there needs to be a physical place. But my understanding of Order 192 is that you don't have to be at the physical place of the meeting under that order. So I think we're fine either way.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Any other changes, Councillor Abbott?
No, I don't.
Thank you very much. So specific to the October 20th, with no changes, amendments, I'll call a motion. All in favor of the minutes as recorded? Ayes, nays, opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes, thank you, carried. Next one is the special council meeting of Nov 10, which you can find on the package of, starting page 17. Again, as a matter of moving this along, I'll put forward that the minutes are acceptable. I have a second, one hand, thank you. And open for discussion, any changes, amendments, additions, deletions? Going, gone. Oh,
Sorry, I think I have one, so I'm just trying to get through this.
take your time.
Right.
We can
no.
pause here.
I off as a matter arising, sorry,
Matters arising and not part of the agenda?
correct.
Thank you very much.
Not edits to the minutes.
Okay, so we'll catch you in matters arising in just a second. Thank you very much. No further discussion, calling the motion. All in favor, ayes, nays opposed.
Aye.
Thanks. Okay, the minutes are passed as written. Thank you very much. Business arising from the minutes. Councillor Abbott, you've got something?
Yeah, on page 20, the discussion with the MP coming to the hall, and I guess that was this afternoon, now that I think about it. We were going to have a opportunity to have this as a Zoom meeting. I either missed the memo or assume that didn't happen. Can we get some clarity on that?
Thank you very much, Councillor Abbott. I apologize, and Mr. Mayor, sometimes he just goes off the rails. I apologize. The MP and I agreed that given the latest public health officer's edict, really getting together for what amounts to a photo op and a coffee served no purpose, so it was suspended. He's in Ottawa now, and he may come back somewhere in the second or third week of December, so there may be another opportunity for either a Zoom opportunity live or something like that. So my apologies to all of council and to staff, and I'm glad I don't have to apologize to the CAO who would have driven down from Whistler for the non-meeting.
Thank you.
That's why I phoned this morning.
It's two bodies, one mind. Thank you very much. I think throughout the course of the meeting, you'll see that I've been sloppy on some of my follow-up work. Any other business arising, Councillor Abbott?
No.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? No hands are being done. Unfinished business. Follow-up items from previous meetings. The first one, and this would be the speeding on the sea to sky, which is really the noise. And this will be something that's going to be in our strategy session. I'm going to say that since this has been on since September 2019 and it's going to strategy, it's either going to make it to the top 10 list or it's not. So I'm proposing to strike this item. It's not that it hasn't been done, but we're going to actually have to do it, or we're going to have to tell the community why we're not going to do it. So I'm proposing that this is struck. Unless there's any disagreement, I will strike it. There being none, okay, this CFO, can you make sure this is on the list of stuff? Thank you. And then item number 153, I think there was a response from Councillor Cunliffe on KG Way. Councillor?
Correct.
Yes?
Yep, it can be struck.
Thank you very much. It's a strike. And I know that on 154, the CFO has responded to Mr. Sredsky on the Felton Grove plant. And Councillor Barmeyer, have you responded to Mr. Stoddard?
Yep.
Thank you. We are a strike. And I think that's probably the first time we've got a blank page. Well, it's temporarily blank, isn't it? All right, thank you very much.
A question for Councillor Barmeyer. The answer to Mr. Stoddard, I've got an interest in that. Were we copied and could we be? I don't recall seeing it.
Yeah, I can forward you the reply we got from Charlene Moses at Canada Post. All I did was forward that along. So she gave us the backstory on that. I can forward that to council.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
councillors. Okay, next up is staff reports. And a drum roll, please, for the fire chief while he warms up his voice. And so Chief Oliver is in the house, and the recommendation is that the information report should be received, and that council approve the draft level of service declaration attached to the information report. Lions Bay Fire Rescue Update from the fire chief dated November 12, 2020. I'll put forward that motion. Can I have a second? Which will, I need a hand. Thank you. Which then we'll go to discussion, which is the chief's report, and Chief Oliver, you have the floor.
Hi guys. So we've got to sort of put our service level, adopt our service level, so we can for the playbook, and also so we could give it to the Victoria. Although most of our members, well, majority of our members are interior firefighters, we do struggle with team leads. With the team lead, you need a EMS level 1. We actually had it already prepped to put 8 members through this year, starting actually about 2 weeks ago. We delayed that due to the COVID second wave coming through. So at this moment in time, we only have 3 members, myself and 2 others that are at that level. You need a minimum of 3 team leads to be able to go into an interior fire. So unless all 3 of us are here, we can't really go in. So we are in the process of putting another 8 members through that. So when I was talking to Peter, we thought it would be best to go for an exterior, and it'll be my call of the day if we have enough manpower to go interior. But saying that, we are qualified to the interior level. We finally finished our burr building. We've got it all signed off now. We got everything, the gas, we got the solenoids in, we got it all the safety elements are completed now. I'm just waiting for the final bit of paperwork from our building inspector, so then we can start using it. We are coming into fireground operations. Being this time of year, we always do fireground ops this time of year, so it'd be nice to start using that building. We do have an operating guideline for that building, which we have an OG in place, which again is attached to this report. That OG gives the emergency, in case of emergency, on exiting the building, on procedures while in the building. So we've posted that as well, as everybody gets all members get a copy of that. With the COVID, we've done like 5 versions of the COVID. It's like a moving goalpost a little bit. We're always updating, trying to keep on top of all the updates we're getting. You might have seen we did at one point, instead of all rushing into the fire hall, if we have a call, we stage outside, and then we go in and get changed and go into the trucks. We have a depending on the call, we have a 4-person in each truck policy. Everybody's always masked up, even in training. With our training sessions, we've got about 35 members at the moment, current members in the department. On our Wednesday nights, we now split our training. We start at 6, and then go to 8, and then 8 till 10. So we have groups through, two sets of groups through. That as well as Fridays, Saturdays, we do truck checks now on Friday nights and train Saturday mornings. So, but again, it's just keeping the COVID. We've stopped doing the meals on Wednesday nights purely because of the COVID. We're not cooking. We're trying to keep people out of the classroom rather than in the classroom, just to minimize risk. With our response, we've had 73 so far this year. We had one fatality at the top of Sunset, as well as we had a nasty rollover a couple of weeks ago. Both of those, I did a critical debrief. I brought Helen Craig in and debriefed the guys, or debriefed the call, went through the rollover. I debriefed it the night of the rollover with the guys, just to make sure they're all comfortable with what took place. And then I brought Helen in the next night and had everybody round table sessions. That took about 4 hours, but it's so important to talk through these big calls. With the new members, what we do is they've all got their 1001 and 1002, apart from the homeowners. The homeowners have to get to a certain bench point. So when they come in, all new members, they have to have a valid driver's license, a valid FR, EMR license, as well as always do a criminal record and driver's abstract. Then they have to show up, and they have to show up for truck checks for the first 3 to 6 months. And after they've done that, just to get them aware of, to meet everybody, because not everybody shows up on a training night, but everybody shows up on their shift weekend. So they have to attend that, so they get to meet everybody. Once they've done that, they've got to do some community hours. And when I say community hours, it's not community, it's fire hours, be it paint the burn building, clean out the hall, general stuff that we don't all do. So they have to do that, and then when they've done that, we do an auto exam, which is it's a 3-day course, which we do twice a year. They do a knowledge exam. They do an actual exam on the village, knowing where the roads are, knowing where the hydrants are. So they have a knowledge exam of the actual village. And then they have to do a truck check exam and not just general knowledge test. Do an SCBA drill. That is where you put your air pack on, doing off. And then we take them out for a run, because it's surprising when you have a mask in your face, you become a bit claustrophobic. So we need to make sure that they're okay with that. So with training, we've done a lot of training this year. We've done high-level wildland fire training. We brought in North Vancouver, and they brought their truck out here with the sprinkler system, which I think is super important, and how we can protect our trees, protect our homes as the summers get hotter, and put a program in place where we can set up sprinkles, draft out the creeks, put some pumpkins in, set up these sprinkle systems without taking too much water out of our infrastructure water, our drinking potable water. We've also done traffic control. So what we did, we put 10 members through a JIA course, emergency scene traffic control. So now we've got members that, it's called train the trainer. So now we can train that in-house. Just put another 10 members through EVO. So literally 92% of our members now can drive the trucks. I'm just doing the final pumping tests. It's not all about just driving the trucks. They need to know how to pump. They need to know what our friction loss is, and what our nozzle pressures are in event of a fire. And as I said earlier, the EMS course level 1, which is our team leader level, which is our next big nut to crack to get us a few members into the team level. We put that on hold until we're out this COVID. Budget wise, we went. I don't know how many of you remember. When I went down to, I went down I think in 2010, 2009, for the Olympics, and we picked up 6.2, engine 6.2. That's getting past its sell-by date now. That's 20 years old, just over 20 years old. So we need to start thinking about putting some money aside, or we need to get a couple of trucks. The mini truck, which is 6.3, used to be 6.2, but it's 6.3 now. We had that built in 95, I think, 94, something like that. It never did work very well. We only use that now just to tow. We've got to. I want to change that truck out, put it into a 4x4. We had North Vancouver out here, and to put it into more of an interface fire engine, so we can get up into the watershed behind us if we need to with water, and have a quick response team in that. Now, North Vancouver is selling there too. They have. I've already reached out to Chief Hutchinson to see if there's any way that they could give us first dibs at that rather than going to auction. He said he would see what he could do to give us that, but that would be a cheap alternative than buying a new one, obviously, and it would serve us quite well. 4x4. Yeah, I think that's. Any questions? I think that's it.
Thank you very much, Chief Oliver. I have questions. We'll go to councillors first. Councillor members, Councillor Bain?
I've got a couple of questions to do with the declaration. I'm kind of concerned with some of the wording on it that refers to standard operating guidelines, operational guidelines, where Chief himself recognizes them as operational guidelines. There's a problem with identifying them as standard because in court cases have identified that as saying it's standard to all departments. And each department has their own operational guidelines. So I'd be hesitant to have us sign it with those two instances of standard operational guidelines.
So would you want us to change it to our operating guidelines, Lions Bay? Because we have our operating guidelines, as you know.
Yeah, you've got operational guidelines, but when I was there, we never called them standard operational guidelines. It's the standard that's the problem.
I think they've reworded that, Fred. It used to be operating guidelines. They're all called standard now.
Oh, somebody else was speaking?
I was just going to comment that I picked up. I saw your email earlier, Fred, and I'll look into that. If the wording is supposed to be just operating guidelines and not using the word standard for the reasons that you stated, certainly it's easy enough to drop that word standard from what's in this declaration. I think I just heard that she suggested it was the other way around, though.
No, we always had operating guidelines. It was always called operating guidelines.
Okay.
OGs.
Yeah. So on the second page of the declaration that is in the materials, the very first word says standard operational guidelines. So we should I take it strike the word standard. And then further down the page under section 9B, again, the first line refers to standard operational guideline. So that should just be operational guideline. And I think those are the only two instances of that phrase being used. Other occurrences of the word standard relate to different contexts. So those are the only two that I've found.
I agree, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Could I ask one more question?
Yes, you may.
In the upper portion of, well, I'm on page 25, all other requirements set out in the playbook is the last line of pretty much of the page. Is this still going to be the training guidebook? Like, I've heard some talk about the playbook is not so much revered anymore as it once was. Is that correct, or am I mistaken?
It is and it isn't. It did die a bit of a death there, Fred. But they're bringing it. They are bringing it. They're still pushing it. It's just a minimum standard they want us to hit, and we're there. But yeah, they're still pushing that, and we still have to declare, you know, for Victoria what standard we're going to, what standard we're going to be at by law.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good, thanks.
In the declaration itself, Councillor Bain, at section 4, when we refer to the levels that the department is operating to, and then there's the caveat that if there's sufficient qualified interior operations, firefighters and team leaders, then, and which would allow for interior operations in accordance with all statutory and regular requirements, so that even if they were to change something in the playbook or get away from it, there's still going to be statutory regulatory requirements in order to undertake that kind of an operation. So I think we have enough flexibility there that we're going to be able to meet all the requirements. So.
Good, thank you all.
Councillors, any other questions?
Yeah, I just have a
quick comment. Oh, go ahead, Neville.
You go ahead, Neil.
No.
Yeah, I like to hear, you know, I'm just really pleased to hear that you guys are taking care of the crew's mental health and going through, you know, post-scene debriefs with the right kind of people in the room. I just like hearing that. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Councillor Abbott?
One request, in reports like this, for those of us that aren't sort of specialists in this field, can we get fewer TLAs, as in 3-letter acronyms? I worked out what a SOG is, but I still don't know what an MVA is, or a RIT, or a EMR license, etc. It would make it a lot easier reading for us if we could actually have the words spelled out and stuff we don't know.
My apologies, that was me cutting and pasting a little too quickly there.
Thanks. And then on the budget considerations, can I assume all of these are coming to the strategy session? Adds up to a scary number of 900K. I know we're not expecting to do all in 1 year, but are they all going to be there?
Yeah, it's certainly going to be something that council's going to need to discuss in terms of how these resources are going to be addressed, or these resource requirements are going to be addressed.
We used to put contingencies aside, but we can't do that now. But that's how we used to. That's how we bought the last trucks. But yeah, obviously we're getting to the point we've got to seriously think about our trucks, because with the pump of 6.2, although it's not our fire truck, 6.1 is our fire truck, which we have built in by Hub in, I think it was 2007, 2006. Fred, you would know as well. I can't remember exactly the date. That's our fire truck, so that one is, obviously we've had that one from you.
Okay. Councillors, any other questions before I go?
I did forget to talk about the mutual aid. I don't know if you want to bring that up here, but we have been in talks with Britannia and Metro Vancouver as well about some mutual aid going on.
Good.
Yeah, just waiting on some reports before we can come back to discuss that with council further.
Thank you very much, CAO. Why don't I finish running the bags in? Chief Oliver, I can tell you that the CFO represents the department well in budget talks. So I think between now and when that occurs, the sort of bluntness of the lifetime of the vehicles and the urgency of the other stuff is welcome. I know on behalf of council, the numbers don't scare us at all. I think the department has been run very thriftily for a very long time, so I think it's time to come around on this one. So thank you for that piece of it. My own recollection is that I think 35 members must be an all-time high prior to post-1980.
Yeah, no, we've had I try and cap it around there.
Okay.
There is a bit of a waiting list now.
Yeah. Good for you.
But yeah, we try and cap it around 33, 30, because there's a lot to train. There's a lot to keep on, to keep on top of.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Two last things to do the jocular one. First, I look forward to my invite to Beans Night, or whatever you guys call it, which I understand my predecessor mayors got invited to, but given the COVID thing, I haven't had a chance to meet with the lads and the ladies. So if you could put me on your list.
Yeah.
The other one, and I know this occurs in Metro Vancouver, and I'm not sure whether you were talking about the district or the city, but I'm close to both Mayor Buchanan and Mayor Little on your fire truck. I'm happy to start at the top of the house versus the middle of the house. So I'll leave that with you and the CAO and the CFO, how you would like me to play that.
Okay.
But I see both of them every week, every second week.
Oh, perfect.
And if you could zero in what, I understand we'd like to get this as cheaply as we can, but at the end of the day, the marketplace is the marketplace, and they've got budgets too. But I think the important thing is we want the vehicle.
Yeah, and I think what it was, they have to go to auction. So we just asked them, can they sort of like not send it to auction? Because they bought 2 new trucks and they've got to sell their 2 trucks. So they're going to go around the 20K mark, 15, 20K mark. So it's affordable for us. And if it doesn't have to go to auction, that's even better for us.
You know, I'll leave it with you and the CAO and the CFO, but I'm happy to walk the halls and make this happen sooner rather than later. And I know on your behalf, there's nothing worse than disappointment when it's right there.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Any other questions, councillors?
Just an expression, I just want to say thank you for everything that you do for the community. I have to say, raising small children here, it's always been comforting to know that help is literally a minute away. So appreciate everything.
Yeah, no worries.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cunliffe. Now, just to rehash where we are, I'm going to call the motion in a second, but part of the motion that was put forward, it references the draft level of the service declaration. So it's implied that the piece is, it's still in draft, but as the CAO has mentioned, reference to the term standard a couple of times. That's what we're talking about. So unless there are any other changes, then I will call a motion. I'll wait a second. If there aren't any.
So,
Yep. Yes?
so just when, in terms of the wording of that particular part of the motion, perhaps you could say the draft level service declaration as amended, and then carry on from there.
Okay. Okay, now I'm going to check my Robert's rules. So we're already first and seconded, we're in discussion. How do I go back to amendment, CAO? As amended?
I don't
Call
As
a motion,
amended, yeah.
call a motion with the wording as amended? Yes, CAO?
Yeah,
Thank you. Councillor Bain, you had your hand up?
Sorry, I thought you were looking for a second.
Nope, got it, thank you. All right then, so we're done on that one, thank you. So I will call a motion on this as amended, the draft level of service declaration as amended. All those in favor, ayes, nays, opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much,
Aye.
that's done. And because he is the guest, and as you all know, we work our guests hard here, I've asked the chief, and I must say that it was not my suggestion, but I appreciate the CAO for it, that I bumped the emergency services report, the Surrey Regional Fire Dispatch Monthly Report, which is item 8, way down there anyhow, at the bottom, and that the chief make the commentary and present this. Chief?
I have to get the chief a copy before you.
I gave
This one.
I gave mine. I
Yeah,
gave
no,
mine.
this is the first we've seen this.
Gave mine.
Right.
Okay. Chief Oliver, your comments on this one?
This is the first we've seen. So this is just our calls. This is our status on our calls. This is versus, I've actually not seen these. I don't get them, well, I don't, you get these, Pam, don't you?
Where do they come from?
Well, they come from dispatch, and what it is, so what these are, this is just our, they give us every month, they give us our stats on what we, like I got one today, and with the wind today, I got a stat here, we have 1 call today, West Vancouver had 3 calls. And it just gives us our stats on what our calls are, what they are, and if we're up or down. So it just shows you on there. You've got the mesas. We had quite a few mesas, MVAs, motor vehicle accidents. That's what that stands for. And then it's just, again, this is just our stats that we get every month they send out to us.
Sorry, could you just clarify what a MESA call is and the
A MESA
category?
is a medical, and it's a different, you've got a MESA C, a MESA D, it's just a different medical call, severity of the call is what it is.
And what would be the more
D is
significant?
heart is D. That's it's D's are what if you've got it going into cardiac or have got heart issues.
Okay,
So we got a lot of mains. We do get a lot of mains. We got a lot of C's where it's just assist or something like that, something smaller. But D's is and B. It's a different level of call. When someone calls 911, when they ask the questions, they rank it, so we know what we're going into.
so a C would be like a senior, say, fallen in a spouse, you tell them that kind of thing. Okay,
Exactly.
okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cunliffe. Any other questions for the chief? Otherwise, we'll receive. Okay, there being none, thank you very much for that, chief. We'll receive that. And Carla, since we obviously get it, the chief should have it too. When it comes to us, could you send it to him, please?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chief Oliver, and enjoy your evening.
Yeah, we're going to do some training.
Okay. Some training, there you go.
That's okay.
All right, next item up, and this is the CAO's request for decision, the 50th anniversary committee terms of reference. And that, I'll put this forward as a motion, that council establish a 50th anniversary committee, that council adopts the terms of reference for the 50th anniversary committee as presented at the November 17th regular council meeting, and that council directs staff to publish a call for volunteers in accordance with the terms of reference. I'll put that forward as a motion. Do you have a hand for a second? We can go to discussion, and thank you much. Actually, before we do the discussion, CAO, a quick recap, please.
Yeah, so this would establish the committee as a select committee, council. And I've got it down as having 3 council members, including the mayor. If you want to reduce that, you could do that. And, you know, just in case any of you want to attend You're all, even those who are not on the committee per se, under this terms of reference, you're ex officio members of the committee. So that just means that you can show up and participate in any event, which, you could do anyways. But so there's a bit of flexibility there. In terms of the ex officio, it will count in terms of establishing quorum to make sure that there was quorum and so forth. So the committee's roles and responsibilities are laid out. And the intent here is that the committee have some wide boundaries of ability to look into and organize and facilitate and promote and coordinate and manage to some extent activities and events in support to celebrate the 50th anniversary in 2021 throughout the year. It's anticipated. Other members of the committee we've got here under composition an additional members drawn from other established committees such as the Events Committee, the Historical Society, Senior Social Circle, Arts Council, Trailblazers, somebody from the Parent Advisory Committee, and then a couple of members at large. Somebody to represent youth was a thought, and then just a general at-large person. And you could play with these numbers a little bit if you wanted to open things up to having a couple more at large, but you don't want to get too big in terms of the size of the committee and its manageability. Make sure, I would recommend that you keep it under 15 and probably closer to 11 or 12 at the most. And but that's something to think about as you discuss this. The term would be for the calendar year of 2021. Upon council giving staff direction hopefully tonight, we would be putting out calls for expressions of interest in accordance with the terms of reference. No remuneration for being on the committee, volunteer positions. The chair would be a council member, another council member as vice chair, just I think makes for smoother operation of meetings in terms of procedure and agendas and minutes and so forth, and coordinating that with staff. Yeah, the committee would make recommendations to council. There's terms here with respect to the financial responsibility and accountability. So there's some roles set out in the terms of reference for the CFO in terms of ensuring that things are accounted for accurately and things are, that we stay on track with the budgets that are set. And items there for meetings and resources, staff support if required. So that's it in a nutshell. And
Thank you very much, CAO. That is your 3 minutes. Thank you. Questions, colleagues? Yes, Councillor Abbott?
Yeah, a couple of questions. I must admit I'm not quite sure I get the ex officio for everyone that's not on the committee, and Peter, what you meant by quorum. Were you referring to the quorum of the committee, or are you saying?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So,
If there was, only, let's say the committee had 10 people and there was only 5 people there, but the 4 of them were, or 2 of them were councillors who aren't named to the committee, but by making them ex officio, they can count towards quorum.
okay.
Thank you very much. Any other? Keep going, Councillor Abbott.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, I'm not sure which council members plan to step forward for this. Still not sure why we need everyone being ex officio. And then, of course, we get to a situation where if everyone's present, recommendation back to council doesn't make much sense because council's all there. So I guess and then my other question was, assuming there are councillors that are ready to step up now and take on this role, maybe they ought to put up their hands and they can get involved in going out to the community and deciding what the rest of this looks like earlier on, rather than waiting for, rather than the staff going out and then the committee established and they've got other ideas.
Well, I'm like staff, and all of us, I think our birthday is January the 2nd, it's right about Carla there. So, I mean, the sooner the better, get the ideas going so we can mesh in with our budget time. I'm up with everybody's discussion on this, I really am. I agree with the CAO that, probably 10 to 12 is better than 15 to 17. Diverse group, I like what the CAO's proposed. The councillors all have very busy lives. I don't know who wants to participate in this. As the CAO's pointed out, it's certainly we need one person to be the council lead, and the second is the backup. And for the same reason that the CAO mentioned, it just streamlines the meetings, and so we get to where we need to go in a minuted and focused way. I'm up for all sorts of suggestions on this one. I think we need to get our residents forward. I think they're keen, at least the major groups that I've spoken to are keen to come forward, and I'm interested to see what the community at large wants to do, how many there are, which actually my question to the CAO is, assuming there is a volume of interest, what is the screening process? Is this something that's come back to the next council meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, and would that be in camera, I guess?
Yes.
Thank you. How about we do this on that it's going to be in the village update this week, I'm going to presume, and probably running for consecutive weeks. I'll make my next video and request to the community is not this Friday, but the one after. I'll make another ask for people to come forward. Let's see what the numbers are, but I think the councillors might, within our own group, people are shy within the community. If there's folks that you think that should be tapped, send them to me. Send the names, I'll make the calls.
Jamie has her hand up.
Who's got a hand up?
Oh,
Jamie.
Yep. Just a second, Councillor Cunliffe's got a call. Hang on, CAO. Councillor Cunliffe? Unmute.
Hi. Yes, I am more than happy to take on a role on this committee, and I've already spoken with members of the Arts Council, and they're just waiting for us to pull the trigger and are ready to hit the ground running. So more than happy to put my name forward.
Thank you very much. CAO, back to you.
I was just going to say that if you're in agreement on sending out invitations to each of those groups to nominate somebody, then it really comes down to, under the draft as it presently sits, putting out a call for 2 other people, one of whom is suggested to be a youth person. So if you want to or anticipate that there would be wider interest in the community, then you may want to consider making that, 4 members at large or something like that, or 3 members at large, so you can, and then just gauge how many people, what kind of response you get from the at-large positions. And I guess you don't have to finalize this terms of reference until the next meeting. So you could put out the call and then determine how many you want to settle on for at-large positions, could do it that way.
Can I interject? That's a good idea. Peter, thank you. Even if we do get a list of many people, we might only, recognize that 2 or 3 or maybe 4 of them are appropriate to be members at large, but we certainly then have a robust volunteer list if we are able to have events where we meet in public and we just need boots on the ground. So, intel gathering.
I agree to both the CAO and Councillor Cunliffe, and when I call a motion, it'll be showing that it's the draft terms of reference, because I think we should have our volunteer pool first, so that we can look at what the composition looks like, and then conclude the final terms and composition at that. Does that work for you, CAO?
Yeah, so the draft recommendation, recommendations in the council package has council adopting the terms of reference, so you probably want to just defer that decision until the December 15th meeting. But the numbers 1 and 3, you would proceed with tonight, I guess.
Okay, well, just for ease, we'll just delete item 2 then.
Well, it's on the package, so you should do something with it. So I suggest you.
Well, I'll mark it as adopts the draft terms of reference as presented.
No, you don't want to adopt them. You want to defer adoption to the December 15th meeting once you've seen what you're dealing with and make a decision on what your numbers are going to be. So somebody should move an amendment to the motion, which was seconded before the discussion took place, that number 2 be deferred to the December 15th meeting.
Here we go. Councillor Abbott, can you make that motion?
Just before I make that motion, another sort of question. I was wondering if there was anyone else, other councillors that were going to step up and assist Councillor Cunliffe with the second role, and I'm not volunteering. And then I was going to suggest, yes, I agree with the idea of a draft, and then the 2 councillors involved have an opportunity to look at how they would like to see the composition of the committee. So yes, pausing to see if there's anyone else that would like to step up and assist Jamie.
Well, needless to say, Mr. Mayor is happy to chair the committee he's asked it to be formed. Or co-chair with Councillor Cunliffe. But if there's another...
I'm happy if there is no other councillor that is able at this time to step up to reduce that number to mayor and 1 council member.
I would be okay with that. I'd like to promote that Councillor Cunliffe chair the meeting, chair the committee. I think that's appropriate. Nice to see councillors do that. It's not always the mayor. Just a personal observation. I also think then we don't have a quorum at the committee of council every time, which is probably healthier, and budgetary things come back to council. It's just my opinions. Don't have anyone else.
Well, I think thank you. Let's mark you on the record. Councillor Cunliffe's got a month to decide what she wants to do. Anybody else? Is everybody, Councillor Barmier, Councillor Bain, are you fine with that as being guests? Yes, you are. Councillor Barmier, are you fine being a guest?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I'm happy to work.
Okay, Councillor Abbott, can you make the amended motion?
Okay. Yeah, thanks for putting me on the spot. I have to go back to the motion. Sorry.
As amended by the CAO?
Just that the item 2 of the draft of the motion be amended to defer adoption to the December 15th meeting.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
All right.
Can we take it as read by the CEO, or do you need me to say it?
Can I call a motion with the amendment then, CAO?
Yep.
Thank you. Call the motion. All in favor, ayes 4, nays opposed, aye.
Aye.
I,
Thank you very much. Moving on, thank you very much, Councillor Cunliffe and staff and the CAO for getting this to fruition. I think this is going to be a pretty cool gig myself.
Well, I think special thanks to Carla for doing most of the legwork on this.
There we go. Thank you, thank you.
thanks,
thank
Carla.
You. Thank you, Carla.
Welcome.
Okay, oh, let's do the video. Oh, there she is. All right, next up, item 3, CAO request for decision, the 395 Bayview Place encroachment agreement. Okie dokie. The recommendation by staff is that the draft encroachment agreement dated for reference the 17th day of November 2020 between the municipality and the licensee, Beatrice Reynard, be approved, and that the mayor, acting mayor, and CAO or the CFO be authorized to execute the agreement. I'll put forward that motion. Can I have a second? Thank you. Seconded. Discussion, CAO, if you could give us the quick skinny.
So this is involving a staircase that goes from Bayview Place up a steep embankment, and it actually lands on what is now Crown Land. I think previously it was known as 375 Bayview Place, but with the channelization of Harvey Creek after the debris slide, the Crown, I think, took over this property, if I'm not mistaken. But so it goes on to Crown Land, and something that I wasn't aware of, but I guess he's going to have a permit from Modi with respect to that land that allows them to have a pathway over the land through the trees to get over, branching, I guess, southeast to their property and to their home on their property. They have a fairly steep driveway. The stairs begin next to the driveway. And these folks didn't really realize that they needed to have permission to make for an easier path to get to their the pathway that's up on the crown piece. They previously had a fairly steep path that was difficult at times, particularly in winter. So, as they've explained in their application letter, they commenced building this set of stairs, which, as I understand it, is a pretty skookum set of stairs, according to the building inspector, and is being constructed in accordance with approval from an engineer and with the British Columbia Building Code 2018. The encroachment agreement, the draft encroachment agreement, pretty much incorporates what they've asked for, with some caveats about ensuring that they keep the area around the base of the staircase free from rubble and other things. There's a fire hydrant right there, so we want to keep that area clear. The staircase doesn't intrude upon or affect the ability to access the fire hydrant, but we did notice that there was some rocks and debris and rubble and such. So that was included, as well as if there's any need to rebuild in the future, or to rebuild the retaining walls of the driveway, then that's covered under the encroachment agreement as well, requiring engineering for any walls that are over 4 feet high and approval of the municipality. So it brings into the encroachment agreement retaining walls that currently are encroaching but not covered off in any way for the municipality. Now that's more or less it in a nutshell.
Questions, Council?
Yeah, I have one. I was paying attention, but I'm still struggling. If we look at the picture of the drawing on page 48, and we see this yellow sort of polygon here, is that the municipal, sorry, or the village-owned property that they're getting encroachment on, and where is the Crown land start? I still don't quite understand it.
So the Crown land begins, it's hard to see all the lines in this. If you look at the tip of the yellow highlighting, which is right above the engineer's little drawings, you'll see that there's the property line there, and that's the beginning. Going east from there is everything above the staircase and above that highlighted triangle is Ministry of Transportation. It's Crown land. It's owned by the ministry. If you keep going south from where it says lot 27, you'll eventually get to lot 28, which is where the applicants live, 395 Bayview Place. But as you can see, their driveway begins way to the north of, it's not in front of their property. It begins and goes through what is the Crown land. The driveway passes through there as well. So it's just that everything below the Crown's property line is part of our highway right-of-way associated with Bayview Place. So it's boulevard, it's municipal boulevard. Whether it's in front of the Crown's property or whether it's in front of 395, it's not in front of 395 as you can see, but it is still part of our municipal boulevard.
Okay, so the bulk of it's actually on the Crown land then?
No, this whole
I see the other property line. Okay, gotcha. So the actual staircase is pretty much the encroachment, and the pathway and the rest of it goes on to Crown land and then routes back to their property.
Yeah.
Okay, I now understand it.
Yeah.
All right. And they've got that permit, and they've got a permit for the Crown land portion. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I
Councillor,
understand what we're doing now.
Councillor Cunliffe, I'm presuming you want your hand down? Thank you. Colleagues, any other questions for the CIO? Councillor Bain?
In the encroachment agreement, I'm curious about something on page 40 of 166. It's termination number 3 on part B. It's probably not an issue, but I just don't understand it. The license may be canceled or terminated despite any rule of law or equity to the contrary in accordance with any of the following provisions. Can we say that? It just seems kind of a contradiction with the law to me. Am I wrong?
It does seem rather high-handed, but this is wording that was provided and which is in all of our encroachment agreements as provided by our lawyers. So I guess the intent is that the agreement and the terms that are being relied upon are contained within the document. So when it talks about rules of law or equity, that's where you can have legal arguments that whereby people say that, well, this was the state of affairs for a number of years and nobody said anything about it, and we relied upon that state of affairs or upon something that was told to us by the municipality or whoever, and we are prejudiced by that, and it would be inequitable to terminate this for that reason, something along those lines. So what it does is it tries to eliminate arguments and rationales that are outside of the document. So the document is supposed to be the entire agreement. That's more or less what it's trying to accomplish.
Okay, thanks. That makes more sense.
But I agree, it does sound a little bit high-handed.
Yeah, I completely agree with the high-handed part. You read that out. It seems, wow. Okay. We can do anything we like, even if it's not part of the law. One last question. How did this come about? And has the work been stopped? Did someone go there and stop this work? And how did this applicant become aware that they needed a permit?
Yes, it was just noticed that it was something that appeared there that nobody had seen before, and we asked some questions and got the whole story and explained that they needed to apply for encroachment.
Okay, so the village works yard or someone drove by and noticed it?
Yeah, I forget exactly who, but it was brought to our attention, and the building inspector went and checked it out, and then we just followed up from there.
But prior to that, they had applied for the encroachment agreement with the province on the Crown land?
No,
Subsequently.
so they've had the permit to cross the Crown lands for many, many years. I forget,
okay.
It's a very old document. I forget exactly what year, but it is an older document that they've had for a long time.
Okay, got it, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, my reason for the question is just an observation of mine, driving around looking at this, and then you start to look at lots of other areas in the village where people are doing stuff without encroachment permits. That kind of makes one wonder how this one got picked up. I guess maybe it's a little more of a significant structure. But
Yeah.
there's certainly, certainly back to our, owning our own, getting back our boulevards. There's still a lot of encroachments that happen around the village without permits. Certainly not ones we're aware of.
Yeah, and I think to date the rationale has not been to go out and try to ferret out all of the different encroachments around the village, because as you say, there are lots. It's just that when things come up, when there are new things taking place and new structures being built, that's the time and the opportunity for us to recognize that, and then depending upon the circumstances, determine whether or not it's impacting any of our infrastructure. And if it is, then not only would it require an encroachment agreement, but also a restrictive covenant registered against in the land title office to protect our infrastructure. This one, we don't see any need for that. An encroachment agreement should suffice. But I think it's important for the municipality to take these steps as they come up, so that over time, and as things are built or rebuilt, that they're done in a way that is satisfactory to the municipality, and that we're not, so that we're making sure that we're covered in terms of liability for accidents that may happen on structures that people have built on our land.
Alrighty, any more questions for the CIO on this? Going, gone. I will call a motion in a second. No more questions. I'm calling the motion. All in favor, ayes. Nays opposed, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. Thank you. Thank you very much, CIO, for your report. And which is the next piece is that this is the CAO's information report 2020 parking enforcement summary, staff recommendation, and this is it we received. CAO, before I get you to give us your skinny on this one, attached to this is the is some information relative to wayfinding in Brunswick. I apologize to my colleagues. To me, this has been a work in progress for some time. The resident that provided us this, and I'm just looking at my records, it's quickly time flies. We met and talked about this the first week of July. And this resulted in a meeting between the CAO, myself, the consultant, and the resident the first week of September, where we received the first edition of the hard copy of what you see before you now. It's been a work in progress since then with changes pending, and these are what you have now. There was discussion about a survey being conducted. We've just received that recently, and the councillors have just obtained that now too. I feel so much chagrin that I hadn't put this forward to the council members. My apologies. But my comment on this is not to dwell very much on this piece within this. It's still a work in progress. Staff has not put forward any recommendation. They haven't engaged the resident who compiled the information or been in a position to go back to the Brunswickers for their feedback on any proposed changes. My only ask, and this piece will come back to council during the strategy session, my overall aim, not only with our parking enforcement, but whether it's Brunswick or the issues that we have up in the Sunset Mountain area or at KG because of the cliff jumping, is that, you know, we solve this within our group within the next 3 months so that we are in an execution mode well before the spring when I expect things are going to warm up for us. So that would be my piece on that, and I would hope that if you've got any questions, you can put them forward, but between that plus a piece of correspondence which came from a Brunswick resident, I don't believe that council's in a position or staff to answer this yet. Councillor Barmayer, I'll come to you in just a second. So I think that's my piece, and I'm going to go to the CAO, but first, Councillor Barmayer.
Yeah, I guess I was just curious about who would pay for the parking modifications along Brunswick Beach. It was just a curiosity of mine. It seemed like a pretty involved modification to the parking arrangement there. Not a cheap exercise.
The residents asked to be somewhat quiet on this. The resident has led this very unique and interesting piece of work and followed it up with a survey to add more data for our people to stew on. I think it's very imaginative, and I think the ideas that are being suggested for her area could be used around the village too. So I think on behalf of all of us, we applaud this resident's engagement with us. Just to move on then, CAO, sorry to steal your...
Sorry, Lauren. Sorry,
I didn't really recognize the question.
Sorry, carry on, Dom.
Yeah, I didn't realize, sorry, maybe I missed that. Maybe I didn't pose my question right, or maybe I'm looking at something different, but I'm looking at page 6 of what looks like a fairly professional package for parking signage. It's a wonderful piece of information. My question was, the proposed parking along Brunswick Beach Road.
Yes.
Off the highway off turn, how would that get paid for? I was just curious. Is there any idea of how that would get paid for?
I think that's, in my view at this moment, it's a bridge too far.
Okay.
But it's a good idea, and it's been articulated really well. But I think staff need to chew this through, and then there's the soft discussions with Modi that would be involved to make this occur. So I'd like to see this all come back. There we go. So actually, I'll hand this back.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, can I just get one more bit of clarification? I thought a resident actually did this plan. There was a consultant employed to do it?
They enlisted it.
Employed by the resident?
Yes.
Okay. And I think you know my opinion that I find it a little disappointing that it's got to this point. You know, Councillor Barmayer's question relevant. I have many others with that first coming to council and us being involved in this going down this path over these months. So to be clear, the resident in question is incurring all the costs to date?
Oh, that would be the second time, yes. There we go. CAO, I've been your warm-up act.
Yeah, I'm not sure that there's too much more to say with respect to that, other than I just want to make it clear that we met and received the presentation, provided some preliminary feedback, and I think the intent was to just let Mayor and myself know what residents had been thinking and some of their ideas, and to get some preliminary feedback. We provided some offhand comments at that meeting. The intent was that they were going to go away and play with some of those ideas, maybe do some fine tuning, but for a number of reasons that I can't really get into, they weren't able to move the yardstick too much on that. So with the presentation of the parking report, just providing information for council, no recommendations tonight, I thought it would be a good time to bring forward the preliminary presentation that had been provided. They didn't have a chance to do much in the way of tweaking it at all. There are some things that will require some things that simply aren't going to be doable because of regulatory hands being tied with the Ministry of Transportation, such as with respect to paid parking. There's certainly other things about in the presentation that staff haven't had an opportunity to go away and look into further. Some of the things with respect to the Jersey barriers, and we haven't had a chance to get feedback from the City of Vancouver on their use of those. And so there's a number of things. This is just, it's all sort of early stage stuff. So the intent was really to bring it forward so that council could see that some work had been done. There were some ideas being explored, and there's still lots of exploration left to do. And I don't think we actually received the survey we might have received it at the presentation. I don't think so, though. We didn't have any documents other than the hard copy of the plan that you see in the agenda materials. And when I got the survey, it was corrupted. So just got that again recently and circulated it so you could see that. And again, there's some things in there that are problematic from a legal perspective. But it certainly provides information about thoughts and opinions and ideas that the residents have with respect to the questions that were asked. So I think probably best not to try and overanalyze any of this stuff tonight. It's there for council to be sort of brought up to speed that there are these things kicking around and that we've got lots of exploration still to do with respect to them, and some additional feedback to provide to the residents who have taken the initiative to bring this stuff forward, which is all good.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, can I just sorry, I have to have one last comment. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, got some hands up.
For
My hands up here.
Okay.
Myself and Jamie have had our hand up for a while.
All right, Councillor Abbott, we'll go left to right. Councillor Barmer, you first.
Yeah, I know I went through this. I thought this was a really solid presentation. I think it might have helped me to understand that this was provided by a resident to us. That would have helped me kind of put this into context. I think it's an incredible initiative. It's a well done presentation. It's very creative. I thought this was great. I just had a question, like, if it got this far, surely we've talked about budget at some point and who would pay for what. So I just want to make sure that this presentation is received in the right light. I think these kind of initiatives by residents are incredible and absolutely worth celebrating. So I appreciate it. I just want to make sure that's heard.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cunliffe?
Yeah, I want to say there's an enormous amount of work put into this and it's much appreciated. I'm just wondering if it would have been more appropriate to include this as correspondence and not an actual report, given that council was not privy to the fact that it was being provided by a resident, which was clear. But what it does sort of remind me of is the amount of work that was put in by the group that presented the view preservation bylaw, or however that was, who also did put in an extraordinary amount of work that was much appreciated. And to echo what Norm said, it would have helped put into context exactly where this came from and who had put the work in. I was, from seeing this just out of the gate, it seemed to me like it was staff that initially had presented this, and I was kind of racking my brain as to when that had been asked of. Now, that all aside, my second question would be, if something like this did come to fruition, which could be great, especially if we could meter it, will we have the authority to close a parking lot on Modi grounds as we have with Kelvin Grove and we have with the Lions Bay Beach parking lot, in the case that something in the future happens like COVID-19 or another outbreak? That's my only comment.
I'm going to ask that your comments carted in and we don't look for an answer at this point. Councillor Abbott?
Sorry, thank you. Apologies for talking out of turn earlier. I didn't have the little hand screen up. I didn't realize people put their hands up. I believe we're building up something Councillor Cunliffe said. This should have been a delegation. Whether we have all the answers or not, it goes back 4 or 5 months. At the time, council were talking about trying to shut down parking areas. Whether that was the right decision or not, it's not what I want to debate here right now. And in the background, this is happening. And when I was asked by someone about this report, I told them that must be something staff was doing and hadn't consulted council on, which is now clearly not accurate. I do thank the residents for their inputs and and the effort they put into it, and someone spent some money. It just would have been a whole lot easier and less confusing if we'd known about it when it was happening.
Thank you very much, Councillor Abbott. And I'm going to ask that we're concluded on the Brunswick wayfaring on this, and I hand this back to the CAO for the parking enforcement summary.
Okay, before I do that, my only closing comment is that I apologize because I failed to make it clear in the follow-up action section that refers to this presentation that it was a resident-led initiative, and that's on me. So my apologies for failing to make that clear. With respect to the report itself, there's some statistical information that is enlightening in terms of the quantity over and above what we dealt with last year. Twice as many bylaw notices issued. And those stats are all there. A lot of staff time put in as a result of that. The ticket revenue, the meter revenue was just for the Sunset lot. So because we had the Lions Bay lot closed for the year, as well as the Kelvin Grove lot. The actions that are shown was sort of more or less chronologically what happened for the most part. The reactions, I think, are interesting. There was no quantifiable drop in visitation despite signage and fines. We intended to chase the issues from one neighborhood to the next. We had to deal with a lot of anger. There was a lot of public abuse of staff in the field and in the office. Flouting of parking regulations. There's a comment there regarding alternative means of transportation. TransLink putting on large buses on weekends was something that was done without consultation with the community, with municipality. And I think that it was done to address what they saw as feedback from their drivers regarding young people going to Kelvin Grove to go to the cliffs for jumping. The outcomes and lessons learned. You can see that there was a significant increase in the number of hours spent in by law enforcement, as well as by administrative staff and by public works and others. They were inundated with calls and emails, and there was a constant effort to repair or protect the reputation of the community in terms of public relations. Lessons learned, I think it's fair to say that closing parking lots, restricting street parking, increasing fines did not deter general public from coming to Lions Bay or complying with our parking regulations. That was a hard lesson that I think we've seen play out. So I think things to draw from that is to consider that visitors are going to come regardless. Sometimes they're encouraged by our public health officials to get out and recreate as something to keep their mental sanity in a pandemic. So we should be figuring out, I think, where they can park and direct them accordingly. To that end, advanced communications are really a key that we were unable to satisfactorily address. I don't think it's sufficient for us to provide notices in the village update. We've got to get out and reach the people who are coming from other areas of the Lower Mainland, mostly from the North Shore, I think. But I think that there is a need to find people before they come on social media, and maybe we need to buy some advertising on social media and or on some of the hiking websites and hiking apps, so that we have to do a better job of letting people know what the rules are, where they can park, and what to expect when they get here. And I think that's, for the most part, other than the factual information that's provided, the key takeaways that I think we need to work on in terms of building a much better plan for parking in 2021, assuming especially that it may be a while before any vaccines are effectively rolled out to the general public.
Thank you very much, CAO. Colleagues, any questions on this? I don't see any hands.
No.
Sure. Councillor Abbott, you're muted.
I apologize. My hand was up and I put it back down, but I didn't unmute. A couple of things. I certainly believe we did not do a very good job of getting the message out to the wider community, and that would certainly have helped. Our circumstance was no difference to many in the Lower Mainland who struggled with this. There is no parallel universe, and I'm not convinced, had we not tried to put these restrictions in place, that it wouldn't have been a whole lot worse. I don't think the assumption that it made no difference is necessarily accurate, but I guess, as I said, there's no parallel universe, so we can't prove that. I'm not suggesting that what we did worked well or worked perfectly or was the solution, and we certainly need to think more of it. But enforcement needs to be part of the equation. There's certainly communication to a wider group needs to be part of the equation. And last weekend, when it was nice and sunny, we had parking issues. So it's not just a summer thing. I think it's a new future. And I don't think all these people that have now discovered Lions Bay as a hiking are going to go back to this smaller group that knew about it before. These people are going to continue to come and hike here for many years. And it's going to keep growing. So we certainly do need to find a solution. I'm not sure by by putting less restrictions or less enforcement of people parking within the village streets, that's going to be a solution either. But I do believe that communication to the greater part of the community is certainly something we must.
CAO, is this a big part of the strategy session?
There are a few things that, it is an item on, and will be an item on the agenda. But I think that between feedback that we get tonight, as well as opportunities to provide ideas and feedback at the strategy session and at council meetings thereafter, will provide us with the direction that we need to follow. We can talk about different ideas and take it from there.
Thank you very much. So, thank you very much from my perspective. Thank you very much for the hard work done, and I know there was certainly a lot of tension at the roadside and at the office on this. And truly, I know I speak on behalf of all of us that, in a better world, we wouldn't have written any tickets at all. I think, and I just a quick answer on this one, and I apologize I didn't ask for it sooner by email. For the dispute notices, I believe it's implied here that it takes an hour per response. I'm going to guess, and maybe I'm being very simplistic with this, that certainly from the letters that I received, it was, I'm sorry I parked where I shouldn't have parked, or I'm sorry I parked there, but I still can't afford this, and I'd like the ticket waived. That's a very elementary couple of examples, but is there in the process of this, that certainly wouldn't take an hour, and I value an hour of your time.
Well, there's a whole procedure that has to be followed with respect to every dispute that's received, pulling the file, pulling the pictures, the bylaw officer took, and sometimes, that sometimes raises questions. So, we have to be clear about the circumstances and clear in our responses, and between the different people that have to be involved. Sometimes there's follow-up in terms of clarifying something with the bylaw officer, but there's a variety of different things, and oftentimes it's more than just one email, and it's a phone call or two, and it's an average, it's a number. Could be a little bit more, could be a little bit less. Just sort of a best guess.
Thank you very much. And again, it's my last question on this one. The data just shows the number of disputes, but it doesn't say how many were approved.
Sorry, say the question again?
So, and the data that I'm looking at, it shows that there was 167 disputes. It doesn't say how many disputes were agreed to or approved. This would imply to a casual reader that they were all accepted.
Maybe Carla can jump in. I'm not sure whether that's simply disputes that went beyond not being satisfied with screening officers, sort of the first level of dealing with a complaint or dispute of a ticket. We review, as I said, the complete file, and then write back to the person with a letter that
The numbers
goes
would be
over.
found under the canceled.
Under where, Tom?
Those, I think there's a line for those tickets that were canceled.
Oh, canceled tickets?
Yeah, so that usually means.
Oh, canceled void,
Yeah.
so, okay, thank you.
It could be a number of reasons they were canceled, but if they were canceled because of a dispute, it would
Okay,
show.
so the two equal the same. Thank you very much, CAO. And I've got Councillor Cunliffe, and I'm not sure, Councillor Abbott, whether you're next up or your hand's still. So Councillor Cunliffe, please go.
Yeah, just a quick question. Is this a kind of, pardon me, generic template that sets when someone disputes, or is it a personalized tete-a-tete, as you would say? Outside of an extreme sort of scenario, if someone parked next to a no parking sign, was ticketed, how much time is being spent into, I guess, the obvious, that they were not in compliance, as opposed to, I can't even think of the scenario really, but is it a standardized response, or is it a personalized response, I guess is my question.
There's a template letter. However, you've got to take the circumstances of each dispute into account and address that in a meaningful way within the letter. Some are straightforward and some are not. Sometimes the comment is that something like the sign wasn't there, or and sometimes there was vandalization of signs over the summers, so sometimes signs were down. But we've got to look into anything that bears looking into if necessary. So, as I say, sometimes they're straightforward. We don't have to spend too much time on it, and sometimes there's more to it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Abbott?
When we do come back and look at this, the other part of the equation is our parking pivot system. I was surprised by that survey that we were sent earlier today done by the Brunswick Beach residents. There seemed to be an implication that you can go to the village office and buy parking passes to issue to hikers. And I've heard this from someone else as well.
No.
Previously. So I think that's another part of the equation.
And that's inaccurate. We do not issue parking tickets, just the ones that go out in the property taxes and guest passes to residents. And that's all. No one can purchase a parking pass.
Did you hear that, Councillor Abbott?
Can you not purchase an additional parking pass for another household member?
If you're a resident, you can, but not to non-residents. And the guest passes are only for non-residents, for residents as well.
Okay, so I've been made aware of people issuing the guest passes to hikers. And that survey seemed to imply that people would buy an additional parking pass for someone in the household potentially, and then give it to someone that hikes. So all I'm saying is there seems to be quite flagrant abuse of our parking passes as well. So we need to factor that into the discussion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Abbott. Any other questions before we make a motion to receive? There being none, thank you very much for the quality work on this, Carla and CAO. I'll put forward the motion to receive the report. And can I have a second? Thank you very much. Last chance for any discussion. I'm sure we're going to be seeing this report many times over the next 3 months. There being none, call the motion. All in favor, ayes. Nays opposed, please.
Aye.
Thank you. Unanimous.
Aye.
Thank you, Carla. All right. Thank you very much. Then we are down to the council-led reports. Yes, we are. The mayor has none. Council members, nothing. Anybody want a minute? Nope. Good. None. Committees? Nope. The chief's done the emergency services, so we're down to the resolution, which is, you've got your data on page 73. I'll read the motion. And this is with respect to the Ocean Watch Action Committee, Howe Sound Community Forum. Whereas continued collaboration, commitment, and resourcing by governments are important to advance local, regional, and national actions to support ocean marine health in the, I hope I'm saying this right, at Laxum, Howe Sound bioregion, be it resolved that the Ocean Watch 2020 edition and resulting action items be received, and that participation by the Village of Lions Bay representatives in the Ocean Watch Action Committee be supported in order to continue to advance identified recommended actions in the Ocean Wise Howe Sound Ocean Watch 2020 edition, and that the Howe Sound Biosphere Region Initiative Society be recommended as host society for the Ocean Watch Action Committee. I'll put that forward as a motion. Can I have a second before we go to discussion? Thank you very much. Seconded. CAO, 1 second recap on this one. I think the information is pretty clear from Ocean Watch.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything else to add, unless there's any questions.
Last chance.
I guess I could say one thing, and that is starting on page 90 of the package, there are a number of actions, I believe there are 7, that are outlined there for continued initiatives to go forward in 2020 by the Ocean Wise Committee.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott.
Yeah, page 106 down to 109, table the ranks, how we're doing on various items. And I'm sure with the committee we're about to establish, I certainly hope we can improve on that. But I wonder, is it accurate? Are we really that bad on the Carrick report? For 2018, we have no on page 109 in every single block.
We filed the Carrick report, so I'm not quite sure why that's all no. Other than perhaps we're not hitting all the community emissions responses in terms of tracking.
Yeah. Well, according to these statistics, we're doing pretty dismally, so certainly hope with an additional effort we can do better than that, but I'm not even sure if it is accurate, so maybe we should find out.
Can I jump in here and ask that we pose this question to Ruth if it's appropriate? Ruth, if you're willing and able.
Thanks. I can't speak to 100% of the accuracy because I didn't put the information together, but the research team at Ocean Wise, I believe, would have done their research. If you want a more fulsome answer as to what that represents and how that was done, I can find out for you.
Please.
There we go.
But, I think it just supports encouraging more reading of the report and maybe understanding and posing questions directly to the Ocean Watch management team that put the info together.
Thank you very much, Ruth. Neville, another question, or are you good?
I have questions, but I guess Ruth answered where I should direct them if I get around to it, but that's fine.
You're fine, thank you very much. Councillors, any other question before I call a motion?
Yeah, maybe I'm pulling on the same string as Neville, but on page 109, we do have I just highlighted a few things that we didn't score on that I know we've been working on some emergency response planning. We've got an asset management tool in place. We've been planning and discussing infrastructure upgrades, including the stormwater. We've got some design initiated. So I guess I just wonder what the threshold is to go flip from a green to a yellow to a red, and where that information was fed to Ocean Wise, who's fed them this information. I was just curious how that sort of communication chain worked.
I guess you could normally, if you read the CARET report, and they do it every year, they produce a summary report. I guess we could take that and cross-reference it. I'm assuming that's where the information comes out. I'm not sure having an asset management plan means you met that goal for the CARET report. It might be an asset management plan that focuses on something to do with climate adaptation. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think all of those items are specific to climate adaptation actions as opposed to simply other actions. And I think it speaks to some of the objectives that were referred to by Tracy in her presentation, and some of the goals that we could perhaps aspire to in terms of having strategies and climate adaptation plans and so forth, and then all of these things would need to fall out of those plans. So it really kind of speaks to, trying to change the color of our map on page 109, speaks to the need to take hold of the opportunity that was presented to us tonight to participate as a pilot community in the project that Tracy is helping to lead. So I think that's a good opportunity for us if we want to pursue doing better on these kinds of things, which I think everybody does.
I think, thank you very much, CAO. I guess my view here is that the data is really not what we want to see and hear about in our shortfalls. The reality is that Council needs to put muscle behind this, and that involves forming our Climate Action Committee and making it a major and key objective of ours. So those two are coming up fairly quickly. One, when Councillor Cunliffe pulls the trigger on the first, and the second, which would be in tandem with that, is Council's strategy session. I think on this one, we have to accept the responsibility that we, the group here sitting at the table, have simply not done enough, and we've held off. And I think to ask staff to take it on our behalf, they need very clear direction of the importance that we place on it and the resources we want to place to it. And I think that rubber is coming to the road on December 1st and 2nd.
Can I just intervene there quickly? I agree wholeheartedly with your statements. I've been getting a lot of knowledge from the course that I've been taking in through the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. I've learned that we are really not alone. There are very, very many communities that are exactly where we're at. It would seem almost like the majority, especially being our size. That being said, now we know, and it is our responsibility to do better. And I will be bringing to strategy what I have learned from that experience. And we're basically in kindergarten at this point, and so that's where we're starting, but there's a lot of opportunity for us to improve upon what we see here. So, and I think that the delegation from Tracy earlier was exactly what we needed, so I was really glad to hear it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Cunliffe. And I know, I think I'm not going to repeat myself. I think the rubber is going to hit the road on the 1st and 2nd at the strategy session. So I think that's where, I mean, we've got what the Ocean Watch, the documentation Tracy stuff, and what Councillor Cunliffe has already on from her course, and what she's been able to access from residents. Excuse me. I think, so for me, during my period here, I've been reluctant to have the cart lead the horse. And I'd rather our Climate Action Committee as a whole put forward the recommendations, and we go through the proper channels with council, and then bring staff in and allocate the resources. Enough on this one for now, if that's fine.
Sorry, can I have one last comment? I did my hand up.
Yep, sorry.
I just want to thank Councillor Cunliffe and Councillor Barmeyer for taking this on. I think the rest of the council needs to get behind them, as you said, and support them. The Climate Action Task Force from many years ago actually started out really strongly. We weren't one of the lagging communities. We were out there in front. Subsequent councils and terms it's dropped by the wayside, and I do think it's high time we get it back on track. So thanks to the two that have sort of volunteered to pilot this, and I certainly intend to give them all the support I can.
Good, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Councillor Abbott, and let's all bring our climate action lens to the strategy session and focus on that. All right, any more discussion? Last second on this, we've got to move on. I will call a motion. All in favor? Ayes 4, nays opposed, please.
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Ruth, you have your motion. And there we go. I apologize to the CAO. I've somehow bypassed your information report on the strategic planning priorities 2021.
Right. And I missed that. So that was the draft schedule for December 1-2 for the council strategy planning and priorities sessions, which I've suggested take place starting at 4 o'clock if we can do it. That's a Tuesday, Wednesday. That way we'd be done by 7:15 plus or minus, and either have an early dinner or a late dinner at that point. But certainly I understand that that may not work with everybody's schedules. I just thought I'll put it out there that way. And if we need to start a little bit later, then that would be, we'll work with what we got.
Thank you very much, CAO. We telegraphed this a month ago, and was recent as a week and a half ago, we asked that everybody come with their calendars. So I'll just go through, Councillor Abbott, I see you've got your hand up. You're going to be first in a second. So I'm looking for concurrence for the 4 to 7:30, give or take, either at the front or the back end number for the first and the second. And we'll just go alphabetically through the councillors. Councillor Abbott, or does that work for you? Yes, no?
Sorry, I'm muting myself and I should have unmuted myself. It's not a simple question for me, I'm afraid. On a personal level, yes. But I really wonder if it's convenient for residents. Last year we had a little bit of participation. We certainly spoke about structuring so that it worked for residents. I work from home, many do, but I'm not sure everyone does. Are we making it more difficult for people that might want to listen or to participate and make it early in the day? I think we need to consider that. As to the dates of the 1st and the 2nd, we spoke a while ago, maybe in the last meeting, about getting out some sort of resident questionnaire, something that wasn't kind of prescriptive as to this is what we're doing, more about what do you think we should be talking about. We haven't done that yet. That's getting awfully tight already.
Sorry, Councillor Abbott, I don't recall that conversation.
Someone else help me, was it in my head? definitely discussed it.
I think in terms of the resident participation, I would have thought the 4 to 7:30 was actually a good time, presuming that folks are at home for dinner more or less, and I think that would be probably amongst the better opportunities to drop in or participate. In terms of asking for ideas from the residents seems fine. Survey's probably not a popular word for me on what we want for our strategy session. But I'm open to the idea, and with the other councillors. I mean, the CAO is going to be doing a drop into the village update. That the strategy session will be held between here and here. If you want to be part of Zoom, if you have any thoughts, concerns, topics that you'd like addressed, I mean, this is your chance to write in, kind of thing. That's where I thought it would go. Let's let everybody weigh in, because really we're just trying to mark the dates here and agree philosophically on the topics, and Councillor Abbott will come back to you. So we'll just go alphabetically. Councillor Bain, is that time good for you?
Sorry, I couldn't find the mute button. Well, time-wise, I'm pretty flexible with this amount of notice, so from 4 to 7:30 is fine. I can adjust there. Tuesday, Wednesday, the 1st and 2nd, I can be there. No problems. Proceed for me.
Thank you very much. CAO, you were about to speak. Sorry, I cut you off.
I think that I was just going to comment that, you know, over the last several months, there have been occasions where there was correspondence from the public that was indicated we would be putting it over for discussion to the strategy committee session, and so those things will be talking points amongst the topics that we have. You know, the 2020 strategy plan and priorities are on our website. For the most part, those are the topics that we're going to be discussing. We've got the 5 focus areas that are outlined in the agenda or the schedule. I'm not sure that throwing open a request for ideas to the general public for council to take into consideration on their strategy planning session is really the way to go about it. Certainly, there's an opportunity within the agenda that will go out for this council strategy committee meeting where there will be opportunities for people to participate, to have their 2 minutes on any topic. And so I think really promoting the idea that they do have that opportunity and to have the agenda out so they can look it over and come and publish is really what that process ought to look like.
Thank you very much. Councillor Barmayer?
Yeah, I have to agree with Peter. I mean, we've got these strategic goals laid out, so we've been communicating them well. We're just trying to, you know, hack away at them at this next meeting. So, you know, I'm in line with that. As far as the 1st and 2nd go, those dates work for me. I prefer early afternoon into the evening. I'm flexible that way. The mornings won't be ideal.
Thank you very much. And closing out, Councillor Cunliffe?
Yeah, I already had marked the 1st and 2nd from 4 p.m. on as of last meeting, so works for me.
There you go. Thank you very much. Councillor Abbott, your hand is still up.
Okay, I know I'm not losing my mind, and I was hoping someone else would remember the discussion. I certainly brought up at the council meeting that we should put something out to the village and the village updates that we could share. If we share last year's strategic plan, that's fine, but I want to go out and encourage people to have a say, to get involved, to ask questions. This is where we're spending our money. This is where we go in and decide how to spend taxpayers' money. I think it's important to get involved. We certainly did talk about getting some sort of communication out other than just an agenda notice.
Councillor Abbott, are you offering to write an article?
that's what it takes, sure.
I think in line with publishing it as the CAO is going to do. Does this work for you, CAO?
I could certainly put something in the VU to direct people's attention to the current strategic plan and point out that this is an exercise where council reviews the current plan and determines what priorities look like for the next year. So it's an opportunity for people to become informed and to engage if they so wish. That's nothing wrong with doing that.
Good. Then I think we'll leave this with, I don't want to split because we'll probably, I don't know what the CAO's plans are to run this successively in the update, but clearly, Councillor Abbott, I mean, maybe this week's the 20th, that's probably not going to happen by Friday, maybe it is. 27th, probably more likely, and that's when we're not going to have competing pieces between the CAO and you, so I'll leave it with the two of you, if that's fine with the other councillors, to get something out to the village before the strategy session. Does that work for the both of you two before I back you in with the rest of us?
Sorry, I was just gonna say, I don't see if Neville gets something together and is ready and gung-ho to go by Friday, why we couldn't publish
No.
both weeks.
Any time is good.
Maybe a video.
It sounds good. If I could just ask Councillor Cunliffe, I know that Councillor Barnmeyer suggested that earlier in the day is better for him. Are you able to do any earlier than 4 o'clock, or is that sort of the earliest you could do?
No, as long as I have notice within, I would say, the next several days, I can certainly schedule to be available earlier in the afternoon.
Why don't we settle on the time tonight, and you could name a time subject to everybody else being okay with that.
I can do any earlier than 4. I'm just looking at my calendar. I already have meetings up till 4 or 4:30 on the 2nd, but I can move that one, I guess, or change it. I can't do any earlier than that. I'll be in meetings.
Okay.
Then I'm good for 4 p.m. start.
4 it is. Thank you very much, CAO. You've got your time. And that brings us to, we've got a couple people.
Okay, can we just close the loop on, so Peter's going to try and get something out for this week in Friday. I'd like to have some input on that, obviously. Get it back, but is it really doable by Friday? Because of course, if we left it to the following Friday, it's one business day before the strategy session, so that's not going to work.
Yeah, no, I think we can certainly get something up by Friday. This Friday.
So, did you draft something and then send it to us?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Moving on, I think what I will do, sorry, because we've got some residents on and it's kind of some duller stuff coming up here. I'm going to, with everybody's approval, move the public participation Q&A up to now, before we do the fee bylaw and the correspondence, in case anybody wants to bail. So with that, I am going to put forward the public questions and comments. We have a couple of residents online. If you'd like to participate for 2 minutes, you're welcome. This will be your opportunity to do so now. Silence is fine, and we'll give you another second. If nobody unmutes, then we'll move on. Very much. There is no public participation at the end of the meeting. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the fee bylaw amendments. Bylaw number 585, 2020, and the staff recommendation is that, and I'll put forward this motion, that fees bylaw number 497, 2016, and amendment bylaw number 585, 2020 be introduced and read a first and second time. And who of staff is giving us the skinny on this?
That'll be me.
There you go.
So, we're doing our annual review of the fees bylaw, and essentially what we've got is a couple of tweaks to descriptions in Schedule 6 regarding hall rentals. And I note that a question was asked prior to the meeting about how often the percentage fee is charged as opposed to the flat fee for activities. And essentially, it's the route when there is an activity that is like a business operating the activity. So if the group activity is a for-profit business, then they pay the 20% as opposed to the flat fee. So that's generally how that works. Other points in here, there was a sort of a housekeeping matter with respect to reference to an old bylaw that had been repealed through the soil deposit bylaw in 2018. That was bylaw 157, so we just noted that just to clean it up a little bit. In Schedule 5, the description of extraordinary vehicles under it had a line item for under 6.1 meters, and there was no such corresponding description in the bylaw itself. It's just 6.1 meters and over. That was cleaned up, and that's about it.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple.
Yep.
If no one else wants to go first. So Peter, the 20% revenue rule, this year is obviously an anomaly, but in previous years, I mean, how often does that actually happen? How often do we actually get revenue in a 20% of the profits of someone running something in the hall? And does it include things like the Christmas fair?
No, I think, and perhaps the CFO can clarify a bit if necessary, but I think it pertains to for-profit activities. So if you've got an instructor or an activity provider who is renting our hall and charging their clients for participation in the activity, that would be a for-profit activity, whereby the activity provider would be paying 20%. Is that right, Ben?
Yeah, that's correct. If they're charging a fee to the attendees, so Music Together does this, a former yoga class. They have, it's either 20% of the revenue or $40, whichever is less. And then the Christmas fair is different because that's actually, that's an in-kind. They're a community group. It's the Arts Council, so they get to rent it for free as part of their municipal grant application.
Let me say whichever's less, you mean whichever's greater, right?
You know, if they're 20% of their revenue is less than $40, then they pay $40, or 20% of their revenue, if it's higher than $40.
Right, whichever's greater, okay. And do you have a gut feel for how many times this happens, or has happened?
Well, as I'm saying, it happens with it's the calculation. It's not so many how many times it happens. Any vendor who rents the charge fees is, so we don't rent it out too many that aren't community groups. So the Music Together does it that way, and the yoga group does it that way.
Well,
Can I just interject
that
here?
explains it.
Previous to the fix up of the municipal hall, the remediation, there was a karate class that went on, there was a dance class that went on, there was an acting class that went on, of which my children all participated. We did have a lot more not or for-profit organizations that were renting our hall, which is, since that happened, it was all transferred to try to work it out with the West Vancouver School District to use the gym, and unfortunately, we lost a lot of programming here in Lions Bay, and I'm not sure what Beavers and Cubs or Girl Guides have been doing the last couple of years.
Yeah, they've relocated to West Vancouver as well. We did have the Beavers and I think, yeah, the Brownies, different groups, and they've all relocated to West Vancouver.
Any more questions?
I have one other one on the fireworks permits. And this is not pertinent to what we charge, but have we issued fireworks permits?
We went back to the records, we just issued one last, I guess in January 2020. Because we haven't generally issued them to ourselves. I mean, when we've had, the fire department does fireworks for the different occasions, Canada Day and Halloween sometimes, we don't issue permits. So there's only been one issued.
Yes, we need to do a better job of communicating that, because a lot of fireworks this Halloween, certainly in my neighborhood. So obviously, the residents aren't all aware of this. Okay, yeah, I think that was my questions answered. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Any other councillors with questions? I don't see any hands. As Carla would confirm, I think I read the motion, but I didn't actually put it forward. Let's presume out of abundance of caution that I didn't. So having read it, I'll put that forward as a motion for both first and second reading. I'll look for a second. Need a hand? Thank you very much. Any final chance on discussion? There being none, I'll call a motion that this be deemed as first and second reading. All in favor, ayes for, nays against.
Aye.
Aye.
Carried, thank you very much. Which brings us to correspondence and Councillor Abbott. Luckily, there are very few of them.
Thank you. Before I start on that point of very few, I had shared one with the CFO, and I've started to go through correspondence prior to getting the package. So how do we decide what goes into the package? Because, I mean, I would have thought, yeah, anything that came from an MP or MLA would be in the package. But it doesn't seem to be the case.
I think when Mr. Shredsky appeared before council, Mayor...
So I was talking about general correspondence, Peter? The general correspondence.
Yeah?
There's one item in general correspondence this month, this meeting.
Yes.
But we've received more than one piece of correspondence from, Patrick Relay alone. So how do we decide, what's the criteria for that? Because what happened was I started going through the correspondence and advancing into the package, and then I was surprised to see there was only one letter in
I don't know. If there's any general correspondence that's been missed, certainly go back and take a look. And if we missed something, we'll bring it next time, but I wasn't aware that we had missed anything, but we'll double check.
I sent the CFO a question on something that was a grant and asked if we were in it, and she said not. There was another one about sort of communities and this internet program that I thought might have, this connectivity program that I thought might work for us because it was in the Sea to Sky area. But I looked into it, not sure it was. There was a few just recently.
But questions from council to staff, asking questions about certain things, that's not correspondence.
No. What I'm saying is, I try and get ahead of seeing the agenda package. So I was asking Pan clarifications on something that I expected to be in correspondence. And it's not there.
Oh, the thing from Mr. Weiler.
Yeah, there was one from Mr. Weiler, grant, there was another one. Anyway, I'll go back and send some examples and ask the question in an email. I didn't get a chance.
Okay.
Councillor Abbott, this is a fascinating question you've asked. I'd be interested next meeting what the answer was, because certainly stuff that I received, the more relevant ones I recirculate. I'm not sure that reception or the office receives those, so I'm happy to do things better and more. I mean, so if you want to do a bit of investigation on this with the office, maybe we can do a little retooling of what we do here.
Okay, do that.
Thank you.
Okay, so G1, this is about the child welfare program. November is the adoption awareness month, adoption awareness month. I think we could receive this. I don't think there's any particular ask other than we could probably put something in the village update referring to it, not necessarily an article, but just make people aware. I think that would help promote the cause. Does that seem reasonable to everyone?
Let's just go through. We have not in the past, Councillor Abbott, we get asked a lot, and we've tended just to receive these items and not put it in the update, or tended not to show support for good causes, but just didn't apply for us, kind of thing. I think we'd be breaking what we've done in the past here. I think my view is that we should probably just receive this.
Can I make a comment? Maybe something for the strategy session, because we do get asks like this. It's kidney awareness, it's organ donation month, or it's diabetes research month, or maybe we could look at in the VU just putting a small subsection of legitimate things such as adoption month in BC, and just providing a link to residents for their interest. Just something for the strategy session. For today, I'd say we receive.
Thank you very much, and thank you. Are you fine with that, Councillor Abbott?
That's fine.
Okay, please, let's go. Resident correspondence?
So resident correspondence 1, 2, and 3 are all on the same subject. They've been addressed to the Mayor and Councillor Bain. I'm not sure if either of those wish to answer them. There's 2 promoting that we should somehow lobby that we don't have to have snow tires, and 1 alludes to potentially some sort of mass gathering of signatures on an email, but we didn't see that. And then there's obviously one of those people that was sent the email asking them to sign to came back with a counterpoint of view. So I guess I'll throw it to either of you if you want to respond to this, or
I
we just receive it?
thank
It was
you.
addressed to the two of you.
Thank you very much. I'll address on the snow tire issues on the proviso that as I do a quick piece around the council, that cutting to the quick, this is Modi turf. The residents have asked that, this go back to more or less the Caulfield Bluffs where it starts. I'm not of that view, and I'm going to presume the council members are not either. I would presume correctly then. Thank you. And so I'll reply to Mackie, Ghosh, and just update Stoddard then. Next one is the CFO's thing.
I think the CFO's article has been handled and sent back. I don't know if there's any further discussion on that.
So that's received. And the same for roofs.
And the same for roofs. I believe that should just be received. I don't believe there was any ask. I certainly didn't put one down.
No.
Got it recorded as info for discussion.
I'm happy to thank her on all of our behalf for all of her work she does on this. I'll take that as a yes. Thank you very much, Councillor Abbott. That concludes the correspondence section. New business, there is none. We've already done questions and comments from the residents, which brings us to the closed section of the meeting. And the proposed topics for discussion in the absence of the public are a confidential bid matter and a confidential council matter. CAO, are there any additions to this?
Yeah, legal update.
C, legal update. And the verbatim that follows, does that cover that without me screening down there?
Yep.
Thank you very much. So that the meeting be closed to the public on the basis of matters to be considered under the following sections of the community charter, and where required, the council does consider that the matters could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they were held in public. And this is under sections 90, subsection 1, A, C, D, E, J, K, and N. Section, this is 90, subsection 2. A and B. And also, I think Councillor Abbott had added section 91, subsection 1.
Yep, but you missed 91I in your listing.
There it is. Thank you very much. 91I. Thank you very much. Council does not anticipate reconvening the open meeting for any purpose other than to adjourn the meeting generally and report out if applicable. I would propose that those are the reasons that we go in camera and the legal reasons why. All in favor, ayes. Nays opposed.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And we will be going into closed. And thank you for the community.